Good afternoon, John. How are you?
Incredible as usual.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me on the Q.A.C. team podcast this afternoon. Let's get started and tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, I have a long story. I've been in business for 56 years, long before you were thought of. I
Yes,
started,
sir.
I started when I was at the University of Buffalo, and I didn't know what I wanted to be. So I was going for a degree as a mathematician. I don't even know what a mathematician would do, but I got lucky and blessed and found a tax course for H&R Block. Loved it. 12 years later, I was running 250 H&R Block locations, loving life. And my dad was the CFO of a public company. He decided that we should computerize taxes. He bought one of the first Apple computers when there weren't even 500,000 in the country back in the 70s by mail. And he liked it so much, and he was a visionary, and he decided that we should computerize taxes. So it took him about a year to convince me, but he convinced me, and I left my job, and he left his job. And in 1981, we built the first tax software for an Apple computer. No one wanted it, way ahead of its time.
Right.
Got blessed again and found a company called Mel Jackson Tax Service here in Virginia Beach. And the biggest blessing is the weather, a lot nicer here than Buffalo. And so,
Absolutely.
so in August of 82, I moved my family here, been here ever since. We merged the two companies. We went public. We changed the name to Jackson Hewitt, and 15 years later sold it for $483 million. So I had now I'd founded one of the top 100 retail chains in the country with 6,000 locations, and H&R Block had 9,000 locations, and set out on my next journey. I had a non-compete that didn't cover Canada because Jackson Hewitt's never gone to Canada, covered virtually the entire US. So having grown up in Buffalo, I did Canadian tax and I knew the opportunity. And so we opened Liberty Tax in Canada. And within 3 years became a top 100 retail chain. So now I built one of the top 100 chains in both countries. And in 2000, when my non-compete ended in the United States, we came back, and now I had to compete against my own name, my own people, my own system, my own software. And yet, not only did we grow faster than Jackson Hewitt, we grew faster than them and H&R Block combined. We opened 4,000 offices in 12 years, top 10 best growing franchisor ever. My second top 100 franchise chain in the United States. Again, my second public company, worth $500 million, sold my stock. And now, recently, we've started loyalty brands. And loyalty brands, we have 8 different franchisors, and we focus on 3 things. Number one is tax and accounting, and I just started my 56th tax season. So I call myself kindly the great grandfather of tax, and because I am literally a great grandfather 5 times over. But also, our second division is construction, led by our roofing and solar and siding. And then the fastest growing is pets. The pet business is exploding. We have 3 different companies. Our number one company is already largest in the country, and it's just less than 4 years old. It's already largest in its space. It's mobile pet grooming. It's called Zoom and Grooming. So we have that's where we are. That's my 56 years in 5 minutes or less.
Yeah. What an amazing story, right? You're a young man and your dad says, "Hey, we're going to do this and get into this tax service." And the next thing you're selling for almost $500 million. And
Yeah,
you're like, "Oh, we were very successful. We pushed it out. We made it."
twice. And now they
Yeah.
say third time's the charm. Now this is the third time, so that we'll have done that.
I love it. Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that because I'm on my third. This is my third venture. So my first was my original company with mystery shopping. My second was an app that I created that some big company stole. And now this is my third venture. My my business here. So this is gonna be my charm. I'm ready to push this one forward.
Awesome. How old are you?
I am 50. I just turned 55.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Back in December. Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the non-compete. So when you sold, did they force the non-compete, or was that something that you just agreed upon to say I would not? Because I guess they feared the fact that you could replicate and do this again and take them over again, right?
Yeah, we wouldn't have been able to sell if I didn't have a non-compete. So,
Gotcha.
or if I sold, it would be for far less money.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if I could take my employees and my franchisees and just go out and start again, then I would wipe them out pretty quickly. I
With the
already beat
brains and
I
knowledge, yeah,
already
I
beat
get
them up after waiting 3 years. I beat them up, let alone if I started day one.
right. It only took you 3 years to do it over again, right? What an
Right.
amazing journey. That's an amazing journey. So let's dive into a little bit of, what are some of the challenges that came with that? I mean, we're talking 81, you're ahead of your time, the software. What were some of the challenges that you and your father faced when you were first taking on this project?
Well, the world was a different place, and you're not old enough. Well, I guess you're barely old enough to remember you were in middle school or so. It's about then, right? And um, people just were so clueless about computers. H&R Block, for example, we tried to sell to H&R Block, and H&R Block our software. And boy, they would have should have bought us out because I I went and founded 10,000 offices against them because they didn't buy me out. They could have bought me out and saved themselves. Now they have two large competitors with 10,000 locations. So and they only have 9,000. So, but they were so lacked vision that they were a Fortune 500 company with 9,000 locations. And in their annual report, the year after we started Jackson Hewitt, they said, people ask us why we don't computerize. We say, why should we? We tried it. Customers don't care. It doesn't save us any money. We're never going to computerize. And so that's what we, and you can't imagine a world where you bring in an adult, 30, 40, 50-year-old employee, and they've never touched a computer. And so they were like afraid that it would blow up. And I mean, if I
Right.
touched the wrong buttons, explode. I mean, they had no concept about the capability or the risk or that if it was risky or not. Here's a great example. When H&R Block tested it, they they told their employees, we're going to pay you less money because with the computer, you're going to be able to do the tax returns far quicker. And
Mm,
so, and we pay you on a commission. So
yeah.
we're going to get, and instead of spending 45 minutes, you're going to spend 20 minutes. And so we're going to pay you less per tax return. Well, it turned out the employees were didn't trust the computer. So
Right.
they did the return twice. They did it on the computer once and they did it by hand. And so it took them a lot longer to do tax return. So they made a lot less money
And
because
they're spending more time.
right. And they were
Yeah.
spending wasting time. And they were just so you just face the I won't say the ignorance, but the inexperience of human beings and the tool of, and so that, and you had to overcome that. So and for example is when I came in and we bought Mel Jackson, they had about 35 employees. And I told each of the employees, some of them said, I don't want to use a computer.
Yeah.
I've never used one. I'm afraid of it. I don't know how. It's too hard to learn. And don't ask me to learn that. And so I made him a promise that I will never ever force you to use this computer. You can continue to do them by hand because in a service business, customers are coming back looking for the same preparer. If
Right.
you lose the preparer, you lose business.
Yeah.
And so the first year, only about a third of the experienced preparers would use the computer. And but I required every new preparer who didn't have a customer base,
Mm.
every new preparer had to use the computer. Well, computers were very expensive and think of inflation, right? In 1983, when we our first tax season, we bought it in August of '82. First tax season, 1983, a Apple computer was $1,800. Now in
Yeah, I
today's
remember buying my first. I bought a Packard Bell. I think it was a 93 or 94. It was like
yeah,
$1,500.
in
Yeah.
today's dollars, that would be about $7,000. And our
$7,000, right?
average fee was only like $30. And so we couldn't afford to have a computer on every desk.
Yeah.
So we would have 5 desks in the office and 2 or 3 would have a computer. Well, pretty soon, as people got accustomed to it, they when you showed up for a shift, let's say at 9 a.m., whoever shows, you could sit anywhere you want. And the desks with the computers were the first that people would grab. They as they got experience with it, they fell in love with it, and it became a crutch that they didn't even want to do a tax return without that crutch of that computer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting that I want to circle back a little bit to the part where you mentioned about service industry, but people were going back to the same tax preparer. It's funny because I used the same preparers that my parents used growing up. So I just kind of followed that trend and they had this one first and I followed them for years.
You do the same thing with doctors and dentists
Yeah,
and yeah,
we did. Yeah.
yeah.
Yep. Amazing. Yep. So let's see, you had a few computers and you had this thing rolling. Then at what point did it finally cut over to now? Was this after you sold it when it all turned to computers, or was it like main computers right as you sold the company?
No, what happened is the IRS the IRS started a program where you could electronically file your tax return. And so instead of paper and pencil and putting it in the mailbox and put a stamp on it and mail it in, you could send it digitally across. And back then you can't imagine a modem, but they had only had
I
dial up
remember.
modems. So
I remember.
your computer had to dial up and talk through the telephone line to the
Yep.
IRS computer. And it was so it was so basic. You could only do basic returns in this manner, and 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 so in. But what happened is the the only way that it took off is customers would get their refund a lot quicker.
Yeah.
So when back before in my first 17 years before the IRS computerized, people would call up in January and say, how long is it going to take to get my refund? Because there are some segment of the population, they live for that refund. It's the biggest check they get. A third of the population, it's the biggest check they see all year. Right? It's way
Yeah.
bigger than their weekly or biweekly paycheck. And
Mhm.
so they would go, when can I get it? When can I get it? And so back before the IRS elect started electronic filing, it would take, you would say, well, if you file in by January 31st, you'll generally get it in 3 or 4 weeks. If it's after January 31st, it's going to take 5 or 6 weeks. Well, the it immediately cut the time down. You will get your refund much quicker. And so people that wanted their money quickly, we would advertise, get your money in 2 weeks, right? And that what a draw that was. And it was a competitive advantage. So the companies without computers were at
Yeah.
a huge disadvantage. At a
And I
huge
was gonna say you guys were front runners of that, right? So you kind of were like the pioneers of get your refund faster, correct?
exactly.
Yeah.
We were top of the class, and
Yeah.
we were the fastest of the fast.
That's awesome. That's the way to do it. You find ways to pioneer and do things different that nobody's doing, and that's where
You,
success comes from.
you have to have your differentiators.
Yeah, exactly. So then you're moving on. You sold that. You sold your second company. Now you have a new venture going on, and it's called Loyalty Brands, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure, it's 8 different brands,
Wow.
and again, the this is my 56th tax season, so I guess I'm always going to be in tax. And our largest brand, we have a couple brands in that. Our largest brand, ATAX, is growing faster than Block or Jackson Hewitt or Liberty.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I've always been part of the fastest growing company in the industry, and so
Wow.
ATAX is fastest growing. But I'm really excited about pets. I didn't know anything about the pet industry
Mhm.
until 4 years ago when we began looking at mobile grooming, and
Right.
it's just been there's a whole new change in society that I'm going to say it kind of someone pushed the button about 10 years ago, and somewhere between 5 and 15, but call it 10 years ago, that pets are humanized now.
Yeah.
There's I call it the humanization of pets. And
Yeah.
so they take them to the doctor more, they take them to the dentist, they
Right.
take them
Insurance.
in for bathing and getting their nails done and
Yeah.
getting groomed. I mean, and they get them treats. And I mean, on Halloween, they get a Halloween treat. And on Valentine's, they get a Valentine. And they get
Love
them
it.
clothing. And that the pet industry has just exploded over the last 5 to 10 years, and as a result, and it's getting better every day.
Yeah.
And in the last 4 years, the amount of money spent on pets has doubled in just 4 years, and it's
Yeah.
projected to double again over the next 4 or 5 years. So it's I've been in this plodding industry, albeit recession proof, because you got to file your taxes. But it grows by 1% a year.
Okay.
And so I've been in this plotting industry for 56 years, and it grows
Yeah.
by 1% a year. And
One
now I'm in
percent
an
in 56
industry,
years.
now I'm in an industry that's growing by 15 to 20% a year.
Wow.
And I don't have, there's no H&R Block. There's
Yeah.
no McDonald's. There's no
Yeah.
Subways. There's no Pizza Hut. There's no
Yeah.
branding.
Yeah.
So we're already not only are we already number one in number of bands and territories in the country, but we'll be a household name.
Yeah.
There's no one that I chased H&R Block since 1982,
Yeah.
and they have 9,000 offices. I only got Jackson Hewitt to 6 and Liberty to 4, but I am number one in mobile grooming and will be forever.
Yeah. I was going to say that because I can't remember ever, unless I was under a rock all my life, I've never seen a franchise mobile grooming service. They're always, entrepreneurs who have just one van as themselves going around and grooming. I've never seen this model. This is impressive.
No one's ever done it well.
Yeah, and
So
there you
it
go. They've done it well. Right.
right
Exactly. Yeah.
there have been a few chains, and there was one that started in the United States. They came to the United States from Australia in about 2000, and they grew to a few hundred, 300, and then they shrank down to less than 100, I think. So there's never been done well in the United States. So we brought our expertise in our team. The reason we call it loyalty brands is I have so many people that are loyal to me that have been with me for so long. I have I have 20 people that have been with me 25 years or more. So, and some of them all the way back to Jackson Hewitt, 30,
Wow.
35, 36, 38 years ago.
Yeah.
So
Come up in 40 years. That's impressive. Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
if you look at the experience of our management team, no one has anywhere near in any franchise system
Yeah.
the experience. I've been doing this 56 years,
Yeah.
and my CFO has been with me since 1989.
Wow.
And my CMO has been with me since 1988. I mean,
Wow.
no one has those kind of credentials, and
Yeah.
so it's you know this they say, Charles, that people that are the most successful have made the most mistakes. So between my group, we've made more mistakes than any by far more mistakes than you'll ever be able to replicate. And so, and you can't, as a franchisee, you can't invent a mistake because we've either seen it or most often made it for you. So we make all the mistakes in advance. I don't know how much of your career you've been involved in franchising, but our job is to make the mistake and take the mistakes out
Right.
and give you, okay, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. This is what works. Here's the
Right.
yellow brick road. Get on the yellow brick road.
Yeah. And it's interesting, right? Because as you talk about that, one of the things about growing a business is how fast can you make the mistakes and correct those mistakes that you find, because that's how you become successful so fast, is make those mistakes. And once you find them and fix them, then you're on to success, correct?
If you're not making mistakes, you're not doing anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll make 100 mistakes a day. I'm pushing through.
Is that, well, good. It turns out to be a good thing.
Yeah, right. So, well, tell me one of the couple of top challenges that you faced when you were looking at this mobile grooming service.
What we were looking for is a working model. When you start a franchisor, the most important thing that you have is a working model. So we had to find a working model and the working model has to be replicable, and it has to be replicable by, I'm not going to say ordinary, but normal people. In my career, I brought in 5,400 people. Some of them are incredibly great marketers. Some are the worst marketers on the planet, or some are great at accounting. Some are half of them can't do their own accounting. They can't balance their bank account. And so you have people of all different skill sets, all different experience. So it has to be a Bible model. It has to be replicable. And part of being a Bible model is it has to be in an industry that has a future. I mean,
Yeah,
some things are just fads, right? That
right.
come in and out of business, and you got to be careful of that within fitness, for example. I
Right.
remember back at the turn of the 21st century, Curves. There was a woman's franchise called Curves, and boy, it grew incredibly quickly because it was very inexpensive and it was for women only. And it just was, I mean, I had only time in my life, I had three of my former employees or franchisees call me and said, "What do I think about this new concept?" And then it just collapsed. And
Yeah.
now the hottest thing is Pilates.
Pilates.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of my ex franchisees bought a business called I Love Kickboxing, and kickboxing was hot for a while. So
Right.
you got to be careful that it has a future, right?
And they come and
And,
go, right? Yeah, these
right.
business
Exactly.
models, they're there for 6 months, a year or two, and then they just disappear. Yeah.
Exactly. So you
Yeah.
gotta. It has to have a longevity.
Yeah. So is loyalty brands looking to bring on other business models, or are you sticking to these eight that you have created and you want to bring on people to franchise these, especially the dog grooming?
We we will bring in other models, but we're sticking to our three concepts: tax
Okay.
and accounting, construction, and pets. And I'm really excited today about pets. So
Yeah.
we're going to what we're actively looking for is more pet businesses
Okay.
because our mobile vans are very successful
Mhm.
and our franchisees are very happy, but we have a database of hundreds of thousands of pets owners, and some of them are gonna. We just are starting a newest one is picking up poop in backyards. It's amazing that that's a very viable business, very
Oh,
profitable business, and you
that's
don't need
amazing.
to you don't need to have a you don't need to be a groomer or a high school education, or you just need to go into a backyard and pick up poop, and then you spray the yard to get rid of toxic. Actually,
Toxins.
dog poop turns out it's toxic, so you spray the yard and you don't need a fancy vehicle. I mean, our
Yeah.
grooming vans are beautiful, and they cost almost $100,000.
Yeah.
But
It's
you
amazing.
can you can have a little pickup truck and a can and put the poop in.
Yeah. And take care of it, right?
Right.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
and then we have a storefront grooming also. So, yeah, we're going to test everything in grooming to see if it can be a good add-on for our franchises. Like
Right.
you can sort of think of it this way, that in income tax, people, because it's seasonal, people have always looked for things to add to income tax, and that like insurance or accounting, real estate, financial planning. What's turned out is over the years, the best fit between the two businesses is to add property and casualty auto insurance. So that combination works well. So we're looking for auxiliary businesses in pets. That's our primary focus right now.
Amazing. Yeah, my next question was going to be, what do you see and you're looking after the next year or two, since you're really hot on the pet grooming here, what's it look like the next year or two? So give us a little insights on that.
Yeah, I don't. I can give you the the next year or two. It's kind of boring. We're like doubling or tripling, but
Mhm.
the long term picture is my goal in vans is to have 3,000 vans in 5 years, and
Okay.
and that compares with, again, 4,000 tax offices for Liberty and 6,000 for Jackson Hewitt and 9,000 for Block. Yeah, and to be a household name.
Yeah.
Jackson Hewitt is, most people in the country know who Jackson Hewitt is, and they know
Yeah.
who Liberty Tax is. And
Yeah.
most people in this country, especially pet owners, virtually 80% of the pet owners in this country within 5 years will know the name Zoom and Grumman and will be a household name.
Love it. So if somebody wants to come on board, how do we reach out to you? How do we contact you to be a franchisee?
They they can contact any of our brands, or they can contact us at loyaltybrands.com. And if any of
Awesome.
your viewers or listeners want, they can get a free copy of my book. There's a link on loyaltybrands.com to get a free copy of my book, I Compete.
Yeah, so give us a quick overview of this book.
Yeah, I think it's an autobiography of building two huge companies. No one's ever built two of the top 100. So it's a auto a view of that. It's an overview of that. But I think that one thing that stands out that I didn't realize when I was writing it is, and many people have said, I like the fact that you admit making errors and you talk
Yeah.
about overcoming adversity. And I guess I didn't realize it, but other people's autobiographies, talk about their successes all the time. I guess, and I am very, I talked about how I learned my lessons. I learned lessons over the years, and I have about 25 or the lessons that are unique, I think, that I came up with. And I talk about the mistake I made or the adversity that I had to overcome to learn that lesson.
Gotcha. Yeah, you sent me the link to that. I'll put that link into the show notes to everybody. So anybody watching this, they want to grab a copy of your book. I'm definitely gonna pick it up myself. I'm very interested in reading it. As I looked over the information, looked at loyalty brands, I was really impressed. When I saw the mobile grooming, that's what stuck out most to me. And I was hoping that you would talk, touch on that more, and then here you are, you're talking like that's your number one. That's the thing you want to see fire out, and that's good because where I live here in Maryland, I have never seen a franchise grooming company like that. It's always, like I said, it's always been, mom and pop entrepreneurs just got an old van and they're cutting away and grooming away. So it's
We
impressive.
just had two people in training in December that already have four, that within 2 months or a month have had, they've got four vans up and going in the northwest of Baltimore.
Baltimore?
They were both close to each other. Yeah, but we're all over the state. One of our best vans in the country is in Frederick. We're down in Montgomery County.
Yeah.
We're over in near Annapolis. We're all over there. Yeah, Maryland's about our fourth or fifth best state.
Wow, that's
But
impressive.
but all of this has happened in the last 12 months.
Gotcha. That's impressive. Awesome. Well, John, thanks a lot for coming on. It's been a great interview. I really appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. Very knowledgeable. I thank you for the history of where you started and where you're headed now. And thank you so much again for coming on. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Great
Thank you,
job.
John. Thank you. Take care, buddy.
Talk to you again, hopefully.
Yes, sir.
You've been listening to the Q.A.C. Team podcast with your host, Charles Luttrell. Connect with us on the web at qacteam.com, TikTok at Q.A.C. Team, Facebook and Instagram at qac.team. Thanks for your support.